And I want you to imagine too, your friends. And so let's imagine them right now. So I've been here for less than 1 year, but I'm imagining beautiful things. I want you to imagine them coming to Sunday's school. But first of all, imagine them entering our space. Our little children. And running around and asking for parents or adults to take them somewhere to a room, playing in the backyard, going downstairs, and going upstairs, going downstairs again, and then they join us in worship. In a playground, and then they come up for children's sermon. And then they also enjoy the snacks, of course. Now I want you to imagine, how are they at your home? I want you to imagine, how are you with them? Now, maybe some of you do not have children, young children. Maybe you take care of young children. Maybe you have grandchildren. Now, I want you to imagine Spanish-speaking children being together with our children. What do you imagine? Now, Spanish speaking, you do not speak a word of English. Okay. Are we on, Jacob?
Yep.
Yeah. Let's make this the process. Now, I want you to imagine our children at our Savior's sharing songs, prayer with our Spanish-speaking children. Now I want you to imagine our children with Spanish-speaking children and Native American children all together in one space. And as adults here at church, imagine these three cultural children coming together in our space. Okay. If you'd like to share some words, some expression during the time of your imagination, you are welcome to do so. We are here, open and welcoming with all the imaginary reflection. And I'll give you the mic just so people can hear online.
Well, it gave me a lot of joy to think about those possibilities of kids running around speaking languages and from different backgrounds. For some reason, my mind immediately went to thinking about our role and privilege in certain ways as a predominantly white congregation, and wanting to make sure that any relationship we've had with other congregations wasn't based on us feeling like we were giving something to some group, though I feel like we should give a lot, but to also think about any relationship as being excited for what others are giving to us in that type of relationship. So, you know, any sort of like, well, just having that be like, I mean, it would be such a gift for, I'm thinking of my son, Eli, to, you know, be exposed to Spanish and, you know, celebrations of a Latino church, or to be exposed to Native American traditions and teachings and celebrations as a real gift to him and us. And I would also expect that we would figure out ways that we could be providing gifts and sharing traditions in the whole way. Anyway, so just thinking about that. That's the aspect of a relationship like this as one of mutual giving and mutual benefit rather than sort of no.
Thank you.
Really exciting. I don't know if I missed something, but I don't have a lot of information about, like, so I don't know the context, but I would say this is very, very super exciting thing. And I guess one question that comes to my mind is there a space where like all of us can be in conversation, like not just our community, but like with the other parents around visioning what this would look like and hearing what they're thinking about this, as opposed to, yeah, and I'm betting that's happening in a different space, but I'd just be curious to hear more about, you know, the leading of this and the kind of the co-creation and partnering with them. Very exciting. Well, I'm ready.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you for saying that. I was thinking exactly the same thing. I was privileged to be able to work with, not with Native children, but lots of children who English was not their first language. And the values that parents were sharing with their children, of course, in any situation like this comes out. And to have the parents sharing what's important to them, excuse me, you can see in their children too. I can remember one little Latina girl saying, "We don't like Black people." My daddy says, "We don't like Black people." And I said, "Oh my gosh, you must not know your foundation." And his eyes got big and like, "Oh, Ashley's Black? I didn't know it's that." But kids share what their parents, how they reflect at home. So sometimes there's a value that doesn't come through to the child in words that, I guess I wanted to say, in words that we can understand, but we could understand if we were talking to parents too. I mean, my biggest problem is not trying to be able to talk to parents and explain some of the things I don't do, because they were bigger words. So didn't have those.
We're not being efficient for us to look.
It's okay.
I share the excitement. I think the way in which what is being described just mirrors the classroom that many of our kids experience day to day is something that I love. the thing that my brain was gravitating toward is the spaces for big body energy. So really excited to think about broadening the diversity of the cohort of kids. And it also makes me think about where do we have shared humanity among our children. I think it's in the movement, it's in I need to be physical. And so I hope we think about that really differently. I know that our space is challenging, but I hope that's part of our imaginings. So someone on the opposite end, I think should.
I'll just shout.
No, it's okay. We need it for the online.
It's funny because my thought was soccer. And the reason I thought that was because my kids had played soccer in other countries with kids who don't speak English. And the sport becomes the common language. And so people who don't speak the same language can play together. And so for kids, learning is play, and play is learning. And so kids can communicate without language with sports such as soccer.
This week I read this report on Norwegian education of their under 5-year-old, and in Norway, 70% of the time is spent outside. 70% of the time is spent outside playing.
Yes.
And in Norway, all year round. And so basically, the task is to enable. And so this conversation about space or place, so I was beginning to imagine under 5-year-old space outside that could enable that play, and what our responsibilities of a place that could imagine creating or enabling space.
All right, well, I'm gonna dive in a bit about our brands. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. It really means so much that what we wrote here is aligned to all of you are saying, and that is beautiful. I think. So I only have 20 copies, but I thought you all need to see the rights. I know it's a lot, but thank you, Hannah. Oh, this is funny. I know it's a lot of pages, but it's only 20. Maybe you could share.
Sure.
We will have the copy in the office. Pick it up at any time, please, because this will be part of us in the next 5 or 10 years. Who knows, right? So praying, so we applied for the Lilly Endowment grant, and it was during April, May. And I asked Martha at the time, I think this is beautiful, grant, I think we should go for it. And she's like, okay, but I have an idea, but I need a grant writer. I don't think I could do this all by myself. And so we talked as she was leaving for sabbatical. How about my mom? And I said, okay. And then as I was like talking to other people, people were saying, oh, I'm applying for the Lilly grant, nurturing children. Oh, we have a grant writer. Whoa, okay, yeah, this stuff is serious. So thank you, Dorothy, for stepping up. And yeah, yeah. Yes,
she was in the midst of graduating and going to the thesis and during this graduation. We were up late at night, like yelling at each other. It's really awesome and intense and beautiful. So you did a great night. And I came out of this, you know, overwhelmed by the size and scope of this, but also thinking, you know, Esther has the chops to run this. Yeah. You know, and it's going to be, I'm really going to be that kind of administrator that should be required if it's been broken months, right? Yeah. And what's the relationships with other organizations? Yes. Including Lilly and our other kind of groups. So I think Esther is really well positioned to be great.
So we're all, but also by your help, your love, your grace, we can make this happen. And this is something that we could share to a bigger church-wide, to a bigger community of how we can create worship and prayer in various languages for our children, for their parents or their adult giver, and for the community. So this is what the grant is about, praying in the spirit, nurturing children in 3 communities, 1 neighborhood. Now, why did I invite San Pablo, St. Paul's Lutheran, and All Nations Indian Church? Because they are our neighbors. They're right there. I did want to reach out to further down the area. No, I want to reach out to where we are now so that we can all be in each other's space so welcoming. And also the fact that I was listening to the pastors, Pastor Gerald, and then Kelly Sherman Conroy. I know her from Luther Seminary, and Joanne, and just seeing like when they were doing the transition, cleaning their space at All Nations, listening to their stories, listening to the stories of Pastor Gerald, and I'm like, wow, and seeing that this is an opportunity which, you know, we're very small, but we're mighty. We're not a big organizations where Lilly Endowment usually funds, but we did it. And so by the grace of God. Now, so the 3 communities will be us, our All Nations Indian Church, and San Pablo. And it's clustered, and we are actually looking at the executive summary, is that our saviors would receive, administer, and ensure proper reporting on this grant. And then we will give the sub-grants to All Nations and St. Paul, San Pablo. And so we will have, over the next 5 years, 4 shared programs. So 1 in October, that will be hosted by All Nations, which is at the Sacred Tour site, or I don't know. It depends on what they are thinking of. December will be Las Posadas. And then in Pentecost will be us. And then we have the outdoor worship that we do every on August. So that will be a 4 shared events. And then from leaning towards the 4 shared events, we will have cohorts and cohorts. So we will have we will have a cohort, and this cohort is yearly. So every year is a different cohort. Now the cohort consists of 2 lay leaders, 1 pastor or 2 pastors at our Saviors, and then a program director, program coordinator. Now this cohort will design the activities, will design the event, and who you would like to invite for all kinds of forms of prayer and worship. And then the cohort will work with the core team. Now the core team is the one that will do the shared events. Does that make sense? Now the shared events, this is where we will have the core team from 3 churches will be together coordinating and working with the activities for the shared events. Now, for all parents, all community, you will all be engaged during 4 shared events with all the different parents and from the 3 communities. So, and the reason being,
I can't remember what the 4 events are. There's
the sacred site, yeah. Posadas in December, 1 Pentecost, and 1 August, our outdoor worship. That's a BB part. Yeah, that's the 4 events. Okay. Yeah. And then year 3, this may be different in churches, but we also have funds to do improving our space. So downstairs, hoping that ELC will move to their space or transition, we will also change the space downstairs to multi-purpose room, sensory room, and also podcast like a studio professional room. So that everything of this grant is not just available in paper, but it's also podcast, also online material. So we have also budgeted for educators to create those kind of materials. And we also budgeted for influencer to talk about our grant on social media, like Instagram, Facebook, whatever. That's gonna be year 3. Year 4 and 5, again, cherry events still going on, cohorts are happening. We are doing retreats, but also 4 and 5, we are preparing for learning sessions. So learning, we're gonna have everybody to come, cohorts and 4 teams to have a retreat. We will have somebody facilitate that retreat, but also we will have an activity where it's a learning session like it could be like in a form of I don't like conference, but like a market site, like a town hall discussion. And we invite people to come, anyone to come from nationwide. And then on the 5th year, that's when we're gonna have a bigger market town hall gathering. But what we'd like to see is to see materials are happening and materials of prayer, worship, in terms of many ways. It could be in forms of art, in forms of language or sports, anything, but that's all depend on the cohorts. The cohort decide that, not us. So it's really basically, it's a context based. Now, before this will start, we will start the cohort sometime in May, but we will do a baseline. So we're gonna have an assessment of where we are in all 3 churches of our faith, our children, and then from that baseline, we're gonna present that to the cohorts. This is where we are right now. What do y'all think? And then we're gonna brainstorm this and figure out what are ways we could do together. And this could be the meetings. Cohorts will then have to recruit lay leaders. So to have meetings with children, and we will have childcare also funding for this. So that children could join, or you need somebody to help with it, to help look after your children, and then create those worship and initiatives, and then we could bring it together to worship here. So the 4 share events, that's a given, but we could also have maybe cohort is saying to another cohort at All Nations, hey, I'll come to your church. We'll do some drumming, or that is up to the cohorts. That's the beautiful thing about this program, that it's a cohort based. Yeah. Yes, Dorothy.
There's money in the grant for additional staffing for each congregation. And we're not going to try to control what they do with that. They're just get a large amount really to add to their staff. And they are so grateful for that. And we need some more staff too, including, this is what's getting Esther full time. Okay. And then there's also funding for things like bringing in artists. Simultaneous translation for everything we do. There's an organization on the South Side that does this translation for nonprofits that we've been in touch with. And they're really good. Like the bilingual pastor of the Latino church would say, look, I'm not translating everything in these meetings. We're going to get some translators. And so there's funding to make that, or if we wanted to bring in, like, yes, how much did it cost to have Emily Meyer do that dance? Okay, well, let's put in several chunks like that. So artists that we or other congregations in their own place, it doesn't all have to be together, can enrich their own artistic life with their children. And that's the kind of thing, that's how that money added up to such a big number. Staff, space,
Resources. Yeah.
Resources.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yes.
You are?
Just up close, so it's quiet, yeah.
So when you were talking about the assessment, so is this gonna have an assessment that kind of is on, I couldn't really believe it, an assessment that's ongoing, so that then this Zoom will be looked at with other churches or organizations. So, and is that a lot of what like your work is gonna do as an administrator, or will it be the quarantine? I mean, you have to report that you do, so you have to have assessment. Who does that?
So the assessment, we're hoping to have somebody from outside for the beginning assessment. Now, assessment, then we have retreats. And then that's, we're gonna do an evaluation. So that's part of the assessment too, we'll give. And then at the end, we will have an evaluation. And this will all be in definitely bilingual. And what I'll be doing is we'll be coordinating and making sure we have all the reports, the budget program, and everything is intact with 3 congregations. So making sure that we are delivering what we say, or if we have some changes that we need to make it happen, then we can, that's my work. I'm responsible for that. And with Martha too, we will show support too with some of the reporting. But for example, like the assessment or your resources, we put maybe little budget that we did based on something. But if this is all depends on the cohorts. And if the cohort thinks that, oh, you know, let's find something, this is something that's even outside the box. Okay, let's see what's the budget. And if we can maneuver some of the budget, we can do that too. So that would be my responsibility. And yeah. I think that's the Martha.
Yeah. I was just gonna say one of the reasons we put money in for some digital content is because as San Pablo's and Operations was reflecting on the folks that they're working with, a lot of the kids that they work with are very transient and are moving a lot. And so one way to just like be connected in faith formation and prayer was to make sure we had like podcasts or other digital ways of connecting. And, you know, that's something we can also figure out how to benefit from as our saviors. But the studio that we create will be utilized by those congregations as well. It's not just for us. And I even see how, you know, that studio space could be a resource to OSCS or to other nonprofits that we're connected to, that it can be a resource beyond even this grant, which is exciting. And I also just want to highlight like how unconventional this is for Lilly to give this huge sum of money to our 3 little scrappy congregations. Like they don't usually do that. And what they actually usually do is give money to like the synod. And then the synod uses that money to hire a synod staff person to go to congregations and do stuff. And that often doesn't actually trickle. And the pastors don't get paid, but the pastors are advising on it and showing up. And so Gerald and Kelly have both been part of processes like this where they helped that happen and then they don't really get much out of it. So it feels more extractive from their community. And this model is more like, you know what, we're just gonna give this money directly to all 3 congregations. Yes. And like trust that they will just use it how they want. And it's also a very grassroots model for how we're developing programs. As you hear Esther saying again and again, it's up to the cohort. Yeah. So we're saying we're trusting our leaders and their leaders, right, to have circles of discernment with their own leaders to decide, here's how we're going to do this, which is very unconventional because usually Lilly is like, we need to plan out, this is exactly the activity that we are doing in March 2027, like you can see in a crystal ball or something. So I just think it's really wonderful that they took this risk with us to entrusted us with its money. And it is really like going back to what Nate was saying about mutuality. Like that's what we're trying to embody with this grant. And the other leader said, we want to make sure the way that the finances are structured, we're not coming to you asking for money. Like we're not policing.
and so we're trying to set up like the bank accounts in the right ways so that like it's all as equitable as possible. And yeah, it's a beautiful challenge and we're figuring it out step by step.
Yeah,
So
step by step.
yeah.
And it's not, we're trying, and the timeline is not fast. So we really made it in a way that it works for all congregation, all churches. Okay, I have Anna, Amy.
So many questions. I'll try to find it. So I'm curious about what opportunities there are for smaller group connections, because I don't make very good connections in big groups, and I don't make very good connections with like one-off experiences. So I can see that like if I have the time and energy to join the cohort, that's an opportunity. I don't know if I'm going to, so I'm curious if there's any kind of smaller group stuff or like more routine connections that are built into this, either within our congregation or like across congregations. But obviously there's some language challenges with across congregations, but just curious about that.
Thank you so much. Yes, you will have small group discussions. So the cohorts will be sharing, okay, these are the things that we're gonna do. We're gonna meet at this X amount of time. It could be who wants to host, or it could be in a gathering on Wednesday nights. Now, the cohort will also say, if you like small gatherings, meetings, we could do that too. So that's also an opportunity that you could sign up and be together, and then after that, we'll share that to the cohort. So it's a very flexible way of meeting, engaging, and we want to also this grant to focus on going to your house, like maybe you, if you like, I mean, it's not like it's not a pressure. If you like to host a gathering, like a small Bible study. Well, it doesn't have to be Bible study, just anything like a prayer group, you can do that. Or if somebody Anna wants to host, that's also fine. So it's like we're together in this, and it could be a small gathering, it could be just however we feel, you feel, we all feel comfortable partaking. Yeah. Yeah.
I was just wondering if you could speak a little to how this fits into some of the other pieces of our church life together. So, because we have like the whole property thing happening, right? And I'm just curious, how does this grant, like fit with that, practically speaking, but also like visioning, and then also with like existing children's ministry, like how do we see some of that being carried forward, and how do we see that totally changing some of the children's ministry stuff that already exists, right?
Sure. Those are really great questions. I'll just speak to the property piece. So we are having a property update on November 10th during worship. So we're having a shorter worship service and then a longer update. So you'll all get a very full update on where we are with that. But we are in a like readiness phase of getting ready for a joint capital campaign with our Savior's Community Services. And one beautiful thing is that this is a 5-year grant. And the very limited funds that we have for like creating a studio space, I think it's $20,000, will just go towards furnishing that space. We can't use any of the $1.24 million for any capital projects. So yeah, so I want to be very clear that none of this is going to go towards the capital campaign, other than getting some equipment that could go in a future room. And then with the like connection to other like faith formation that we're doing right now, and I think one beautiful thing about these 4 events is that you'll notice some of them are already doing like the outdoor worship at Evening Park, right? And also the Las Posadas, like San Pablo's has been doing those already the last couple of years, and they invited us to go last year. Most did go. Yeah, it's coming up in December, so that's a thing they're already doing. And again, to go back to the cohort, I think that, you know, the cohort we put together of leaders will be mindful of that. It's like, what do we already have? Do we need to like invest more in another godly playroom or amplify that in some way? Or do we want to invest in some new directions or look some both and? So going back to the cohort, that's kind of the refrain. Yes. Is like the cohort will lead the congregation in discerning about what continues and what's like new exploration.
Well, also, not to be, for you all to be scared or anything, it's, I think what we have is beautiful. We put that in the rights. We wrote that, and what we want is, how do we make that more beautiful when we have also two other congregations that will join us in these children ministry? So we should continue to what we're doing. And then when the cohort meets, we will discuss about that and they will make their analysis and they will go to you for questions or doing maybe monkey survey. I don't know, but that will be, it's all going to be a mindful process, but also a way that how do we get our kids engaged more and be accompanied with others. So, sorry, Rebecca, but I'm going to give to Amy. Okay. Promise I won't say everything. And I just wanted to say that you are not alone in what preferring small groups. So that's, part of what we're trying to do. Yeah. And forgive me if this has been said, but it can't be said too much, that this is an example of using our privilege and our position to expand and be inclusive in those diverse ways we highlighted as part of our mission. And Dorothy putting her skills to work, all that, that's all part of a bigger picture that we need to be part of. Kudos to all of us involved in that. And then I also want to highlight that the ministry is to the neighborhood as well. And so these events that we have, certainly West Masonics, have the capacity to really be a blessing to the neighborhood.
One thing that as a parent I'm so grateful to already is the way in which there's so much intentionality around how young people receive the gospel and the word, whether it be trying to create a playground for godly play. And what I'm personally most passionate about is empowering them as expressive vessels of the Spirit and as gospel bringers themselves. And so excited about what equipment can do for them, because when we talk about transient, I think that's a really great word to introduce, and perhaps in some ways, not the same way, but we're also pretty transient. We don't all show up every Sunday necessarily. And I think about young people, transient's a great word for attention span, right? And in my experience, being so blessed to get to work with these marvels on telling stories, and every one of them has some amazing experience with scripture, some aha moment that's revelatory, and everybody in the room feels it. And 5% of that gets to get experience in worship, right? And that's amazing. And there's that ancient expectation, and you pray for it, and whatever comes out is a gift, and everybody loves them, but you have no idea what they experienced in that room. And you know what you can do with those kids with a microphone? You can get them to express that thing they worked so hard at without the sort of tyranny of a crowd that they love, but that they can make these discoveries and make it permanent and disperse it. That they can tell the story with all the exquisite, detail that they found and then share it. It's so exciting.
Yes, that's what we are hoping. Well, I think
Just a comment, building on Martha's comment about how different from Lily's usual place. I think everybody in our three congregations feels recognized as an affirmation of our capacity for creative development of new models of children's ministry. And so we should trust and unleash ourselves, especially maybe if we have children or grandchildren. I know that that's going to be in the critical formation of years. Trust ourselves and love others.
I love that. How beautiful. Yes.
Oh, and I would just add as well, building on Katie's stuff, I think having some assessment and documentation along the way so that I hope someplace in the 5 years somebody kind of writes up a story of that. So it's not so that it's a cookbook for other congregations, but so that it can be a catalyst for their own management and venture.
So, as a close relative of some neurodivergent persons in this age group, I'm wondering how intentional we will be in terms of developing the curriculum, because I'm sure the other two congregations have as much experience with that as we do. And so how is there a plan, an intentional plan to think about that proactively as you're doing the cultural piece?
Yes. Yes, that will be the cohort again.
Okay.
But because of our infrastructure too downstairs, we're gonna have sensory room. We're gonna have a space for hearing divergent children, but also the community too, the parents. So that's gonna be all together with the cohort.
Yes. Parental, resourcing parents around those issues as well.
Yes, of course.
All right, sort of question. So is it right that the cohort, there's one for each congregation?
Yes.
And they're working in their own, I guess I'm trying to understand, it sounds like there's 4 events per year that are like together, or we're planning them together and really in community with the other 2. And then everything else is like in a cohort, and we're developing, each congregation is sort of developing their own.
Yes. Wait.
Yeah, in terms of just like giving money to sort of build their own ministries.
Yes.
Is that right?
Correct.
There's not really a vision beyond that of like more shared activity or work among the children other than the 4 events per year. Is that the idea?
Well, the 4
Or the
events,
cohorts?
yeah, the 4 events will be shared with the 4 shared events will be organized by the core team. Okay, and this core team will be together with all the 3 churches. And the shared, so it could be the cohort could say, okay, well, why don't there are times that we could be together, going to churches together, like maybe visiting but yes.
But the cohort
will be, yes.
Is not communicating. They would have to like figure out how to.
They will communicate with the retreats, 3 retreats, the cohort.
Once a year.
Yeah, once a year there's a retreat, and that's during Pentecost, yeah.
And is the core team across congregations,
Yeah.
right? How often do they meet?
Well, they meet before the
events. Okay.
Before the event, the shared events, yeah. But they have their own, they create their own team, 14, but then we come together. Yeah, in one, yes.
No, I'm just gonna say this is what, there's a lot of money for like bringing in artists and stuff. And imagine if we said, oh, let's have a drumming class and invite the other to come.
Yeah.
Or it's just a matter of, there's resources to do stuff. It just takes somebody to say, let's do it. And we didn't plan out every single bit of it.
I suppose it's a great opportunity for all of you, for everyone here to dream wildly and to build together, but as we build together with other communities, to be courageous in your conversations and in your ability to let go and to step aside and to have courageous conversations about what it feels like to let go, to step aside a little here and there as we are the gatekeepers and the basket carriers of an opportunity for Black and brown people and children. And be careful with our, super careful with our conversations and our intentions. And I just feel like, I personally feel like a lot of anxiety there's a lot that I have to navigate. I of course will not be involved at all, you know, with a lot of this, but I'm on the sort of on the fringes and on the margins. I want safety for everyone. I want people to be healthy. That's my rules. And having a predominantly white congregation, inviting Black and brown indigenous people and children in, you have to constantly remember that microaggressions happen. And we have to be super careful with all of this. But I'm just so proud of this whole community. So thank you.
When you mentioned courage, I'm sitting here this whole time being scared because as parents of young children, we don't have a lot of free time and a lot of extra self to give. And so I come to church exhausted today just from like my life. And I hear about all this stuff that needs to happen and I'm overwhelmed by it. And I want my response is to want to withdraw. Like I'm gonna run away from that because that's just gonna be more on my plate. And so I just wanted to speak that out loud. I think we have what it takes to do that, but also that is a part of being young parents is just having so much on their plates. And then I really hope that the sensory room doesn't separate people from the litigation. So I don't like it in the basement, honestly. I feel like we should be more creative about how to place that and where to place it because I feel like people who are neurodivergent and have sensory issues are as much a part of the congregation as everybody else, and they shouldn't be putting on their floor to worship. So but every time I hear that in the basement, that's my other thing is that it's causing me anxiety of like, I want to be inclusive of everyone, including those people who have different sensory needs and finding a way to help have them be able to worship with us, but in a space that meets their needs.
Thank you, Lauren. I appreciate you. I appreciate parents. I was parenting. Well, I'm still a parent. But I was a parent of a young child before, and I know how it is. But we are mindful of that's the point. It's an act. And the cohort, that's why it's all about cohorts. We're engaging everybody should be participated in a way that it's on their capacity. Now, with the sensory room, we're hoping there are two choices, but the reason why it's going to be downstairs is going to be awesome. Okay, they'll look at it. The speakers, people will hear the congregation from downstairs, the worship from downstairs. It's going to be open space, but we're also trying to figure out the space here too. How we can make this also sensory so that they're able to, you know, come in and out of the space. So thank you for that. We are sensitive about that, but it'll be great downstairs. I know it's kind of like daunting. Oh my gosh, why are we downstairs? But hopefully it'll work out. Yes. I think nobody, yes, Norman.
Don't just do speakers. Have a display too.
Yeah, we will.
Sorry, no speakers in general. The sound is the #1 sensory problem for a lot of kids.
Yeah.
So the sound needs to be optional.
Yeah.
And we need to trust that people can worship even if they're not watching the worship service.
Sure. Yes. Great. See all this information. Yes. Wait, I'm sorry, Jenny, will somebody do
Will the money go equally like split to thirds to the congregation?
Yes. It will be. So we have about 400,000 in ours. And I share with you the summer budget, the summary of our budget in the back. And anyone else? Okay, just want to get the temperature of the room. It's okay. Just shout me one word. How do you feel? Excited? Excited? Hopeful? I like the word vessels. Children as our vessels.
To Rico's point, which I think is so important. Thank you, Rico. I was just remembering back to some of our embodied anti-racism work. I think we did that before you got here, but there were a few sessions that we did. And I wonder if we could continue that form of courageous conversation too, as we become more adept at intercultural conversations and encounters, to really, yeah, be aware of our unfortunate capacity to microaggress folks of color as white people. Yeah.
Thank you. Another word about this grant.
Joyful.
Joyful, yay! Excitement, yes, thank you.
Curious.
Curious, me too. I'm curious too. Yes, trusting.
I was looking for a word that means, hoping that there's actually a Holy Spirit, because we're gonna need it.
The Holy Spirit is already here with this money. So yes, thank you. Yes, 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 it says praying in the Spirit, that's the title of our grant. Yeah, thank you, Dave. Okay. Thank you. We will have another of this adult forum, and hopefully if we could get our Sunday school teachers to come too, we'll work on that for next year. All right. Thank you. Blessings all again. If you don't have, please take this with you, and share with your family, with your children in best way capacity of, summer. But yeah, not give them the whole thing, but, and if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm here, and the proposal, the executive summary will be in the office too. Thank you all.